Hi, welcome to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
I sure are.
And today we have a special guest with us, Tamara Royal. She's a yogi, a mom, a coffee lover. Yoga became an important part of her life as she was moving through emotional healing. She was in the process of starting over after a divorce, settling into a new home, juggling the responsibilities of running her business, parenting, finding her footing, and truly discovering herself. During this time, she was also supporting people with mental health challenges. She tried local class, expecting some stretching and stress release, but what she didn't realize was this was going to be a journey of self-discovery. Her mat became her healing space. It was a familiar friend that supported her as she gained not only strength and flexibility, but so much more as she worked through releasing deeply buried emotions. She was surprised to discover that emotion held in the body translated to physical symptoms and worked on releasing them so that her physical body felt better. At her worst, she was nearly immobile with chronic inflammation and pain. Her body was the biggest it had ever been, and she ended up losing a substantial amount of excess weight. Her self-work journey continues to grow and evolve. At this point, she's comfortable in her own skin, regardless of the number on the scale. She's a seeker of experiences. She loves to try new things, explore new places, sample all coffees, and wear her flip-flops. Oh, I'm with you, girlfriend. She can be a little goofy and have some laughs along the way. When she teaches yoga or meditation class, retreat, or Reiki session, she gets so much more than she gives. It connects her in a way that fuels her. She loves to share this practice, and it fills her heart. So if you're thinking about joining her in some form of yoga, whether it's your first or 1,000th class, she says, let's be Omis. So
very nicely put. Very nicely put.
So welcome, Tamara. It's really nice to have you on here with us.
So lovely to have you. Yes, it is.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. That kind of explained a lot of it, but I am that person that loves to share my journey, and it just kind of naturally unfolds. Yoga really has a special place in my heart. It's done me a world of good, and it really was the door opening my personal journey. And then little did I know that took me into my spiritual journey, which is just a continual process. And it's really interesting to see the travels I've had through this whole process. So, going for what I thought was an exercise class has now morphed into so much more. So, yeah, a big part of my week is sharing some yoga and sharing some meditation in the form of yoga nidra, and taking some classes when I can get to them, and all the things. So yes, you can usually find me in flip-flops with a coffee in hand, and hopefully near a body of water at some point. This summer, I plan to get on my paddleboard quite a bit. I've been drawn to doing more of that. And I've got my furry friends that usually are in tow. So I am that crazy person.
Or just living the good life is
the other thing.
Yeah, I think I am the true Sagittarian. I like new experiences, and if it fills me up, I just want more of it. And I love to, drag people along on my experience as well. So come join me, do all the things. And that's kind of my thought with sharing my yoga is it doesn't have to be so serious. It can be a lot of fun, and you can show up at a class and we might have some rap music going on, a little bit of Eminem, and we might have some super spiritual music, and you just never know which day it might be. It just kind of goes with the flow.
Oh, that sounds fun. I like that, because a lot of the yogas you do go to, it is so serious, and it is so this is what we're doing, and
yeah.
So I like that that's a different version of it.
It is. It's lovely, actually. And any kind of laughter is good. We like to laugh a lot too, and we do a lot of it on this. Actually, we just did a little while ago. I was waiting for my part and I missed. Anyways, whatever. Life happens. It was one of those days. But no, yoga is a beautiful thing, and to share it with other people is such a wonderful thing, because anything you do is spiritually, that you can bring in the other people, that they can join you and just find their bliss. That's wonderful. So good for you.
So you do yoga nidra. Do you do any other of the yogas like yin or any of that, or?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So my weekly classes that I teach are generally a movement of flow. I'll also do a yin style class, and then I'll throw in a really deep shavasana, which is a little bit of nidra, and then also teaching a whole class on yoga nidra. So if you haven't experienced that, it's a class where you're generally laying in stillness for the whole hour or however long the class is. And it is a form of meditation. Often people will fall asleep and they're like, this is the yoga class. So it seems to be very popular with couples, and not to stereotype, but a lot of times the men will fall asleep and it's perfectly fine. But I found yoga nidra when I was going through some definite body struggles as far as chronic pain. I was going through some deep inflammation, and that I found out that, you know, your body pain can really affect your mental health. So I was facing adrenal burnout at that point, and I was working with a holistic nutritionist that pointed out that you're going to have to do some very regenerative practices. And I found yoga nidra, and that was kind of my jam. I came to it for physical, and it really did help. It helped with my sleep. It helped with my stress. Really helped me through that period. And the more that I practiced it, I learned that there's a whole nother spiritual layer to it. So it can be strictly a physical practice for relaxation. It's beautiful for that. The more I've done it is it really works on shifting limiting beliefs. And there's your I am statement that's known as Sankalpa. And your I am statement is it's your personal affirmation that can be really transformational. So that is one of my loves to share, and I try and share that as often as I can, and I practice it as much as I can too. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I love yoga nidra, and I agree, because it can be, I know the first time that I did it, I just bawled. Like, it was just such a release and so much came out. And then after that, I fell asleep, to be honest. But that's okay too, right? Because that's what you say, right? Is it's okay to do that, because obviously that's what your body is asking for at that point.
Absolutely.
Have you done yoga nidra?
I haven't done yoga nidra, but I would like to do it one day. One day. So do you have your own studio that you have there? And whereabouts?
So not an actual studio, but I do rent a regular space for the classes. And it's in my town, Okotoks. But I also do some online, and I've started playing with some recordings that I've shared online. So they are on my YouTube channel. And I've also got them on the Insight Timer for meditation. So if you want to curl up and go to bed with you know, an audio yoga nidra, I do have a few of those.
Nice. I'll try that maybe.
Yeah. And the one thing I found out is there tends to be some ads that love to interrupt on YouTube, which is not really inducive to middle of yoga nidra. So yeah, I can send you a link that will not, for sure, but it can be a sleep aid for sure. And another thing is, a beautiful way to start your morning is to start a yoga nidra before you get going on your day.
Yeah, I guess I can see that, because, right, especially when you're doing the Sankalpa, then you're putting that forward into how your day really want to show up in your day.
Yeah, I think it really sets the tone, and it kind of shakes those limiting beliefs that, you know, as much as we've done our work, I think they're just there lifelong, like for life, just wanting to pop in, you know, any chance they can get. And the stronger your practice is, I think what the practice really is the cycle of seeing those patterns and calling those patterns for what they are. And I see you, but that's not true. And you can kind of recover back into where you are, probably faster and more confidently. So even though those voices love to rear their heads, you know, like, I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or wherever it may take you, it's like, oh, I see you, brain, but that's not really true. So that seems to be the magic of the practice for me.
Good for you. And it's true. It's it's good to keep our mind as positive as possible. And you're right.
Well,
Starting the morning positive is a really good way to start your day.
a lot of the practices for Nidra are quite long, but they don't have to be. Like the ones I do are between 45 minutes and an hour, but you can have a 20-minute practice. So if time's an issue, you can find shorter ones too.
That's good to know.
It is good to know.
Yeah, I love it. I love yoga in itself, but I love yoga nidra because I love that feeling of just being in your own space. And that was one thing I really had to learn when I started yoga, was because I go on the mat and I can be a little bit competitive. So I found I was right. And I hurt myself doing yoga, and I was like, who does that? And I'm like, okay, that's my body saying, hello, pay attention to just what's happening for you.
Right.
So
yeah, there's a Sanskrit term when you go through the teachings of yoga, it's called ahimsa, and that basically means no harm. And that can be translated, if you're very strict yogi, that maybe that is to the point of being a vegan, or it can be physical, like honoring your body in this moment. And that's, if I can teach one thing in my movement classes, is to honor your body in this moment. Maybe your body yesterday was doing crazy acrobatic things, and today it's saying, I need this. And we get so judgmental, usually against ourselves, and the competitive for sure, because if we're surrounded by people that are doing wildly things that we think are an advanced yogi, I will come back to that, but we in our body think, I should be able to do that too, and usually at the detriment of our health. Injury is pretty high if we get caught in that, and you're not alone. It happens. I've been there. And coming back to eyes on my mat, and this is where I am today, that's a tricky practice.
it is. Yeah.
And very much so. Yes, it is. But paying attention to your own body is the whole thing. It's paying attention every minute. I think the whole thing with it is learning how to do that all the time.
It's continual work. I'm not there. It's like, you get this, this imposter syndrome, where as soon as someone is, I don't know, maybe they're handstanding right off the bat in your class, you're like, oh, well, okay. But that's not what we're doing today. And I think we have this perception that there's levels to achieve in your yoga practice. And I really think the biggest part is that connection with yourself. The physical is just a little part of it. It really is. And my very first yoga class, I showed up at my local gym, and it was a power hot flow yoga. It just about died, but it pushed me. I really enjoyed it, actually. And I did go for many years for that class. And although I probably pushed myself in a competitive nature more than I should have, but it was my stepping stone into the practice. And then I branched out and tried different styles, and I still do enjoy a good sweat, but I really think there's a broader scope to the practice.
Yeah. Do you think that with yoga, doing it on your mat and having that practice, do you think that you bring that out into your daily life? Like when you're going out to the water, or you're going out into the world, do you think that you bring what you've got from your mat into that?
I think absolutely. I wish that I had a yoga practice like this before having children. Going through breathwork classes for childbirth would have been so beneficial to have these tools at that point, but that wasn't part of my journey at that point. But I always get a kick out of, I'm also a meme lover, so I get a kick out of the hurry up and rush to your Zen class. And, a lot of the spiritual yogis are the first ones to drop all the F-bombs. So I think that's good too. We're real, we're human. I know you should be, but I really find the connection with breath is a big part of the practice. Yeah, it does come through your day. I do find if I'm in traffic and I'm stressing, I will notice my breath changes. And I'm aware of it where I would not have been aware before. as a Sagittarian going for new experiences. I did a whitewater kayak adventure a couple years ago, which is way out of my comfort zone, but I feel like I can check that off. I noticed
fun though.
yeah, I noticed my stress response. I hummed the entire way.
Did you?
And I did. And the humming is that soothing for the nervous system. I did it very unaware at the time, but I laughed at myself after because I needed that calming measure. So yeah, there's a whole toolkit in this practice.
Yeah.
So much more than
I
movement.
really love yoga myself. So
Yeah, she does. She's been very good at it. I'd work out a different way, but I mean, not that I've done Pilates, and I've done, and when they were younger, I actually did yoga then, and I went from yoga to Pilates and dance sort of thing after that. But talking about the breath work, I know that when I'm working out, if I get tired, I think to myself, why am I so tired? And then I'll think, oh, silly girl, you're not breathing. You're holding, right? And so I realize that I'm holding more so that because I'm trying to, lift the weights or whatever the case may be. I find then when I remind myself, breathe.
True.
It becomes easier, right? Because you're actually letting the air flow and, the movement work with it. And what a difference. But we do have to really pay attention to ourselves for that, I find.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had a conversation with someone who's a marathon runner, and she was talking about how she has brought in the restorative yoga practice into her regime. And I really liked the idea of the balance of yin and yang in that, because she's very full out physical, strenuous in her athletic training. And a restorative practice is a very slow, mindful practice, probably 4 poses in a whole hour. And it really is, it's actually quite difficult if our mind is racing, and that is part of the practice. But it also teaches your muscles and your nervous system, your breath, your body to slow and to recover. It's actually a really nice practice for injury prevention. So it's actually a nice complement, especially when maybe you have a high stress situation with a job, athletic training, we're stressing the body, you're stressing the mind. We need that balance. So I wouldn't say for someone like that a very strenuous yoga practice would complement them, because they already have something like that. So that, weighing it out and getting that balance is really important.
Yeah.
Well said. That's so true.
Yeah, it is true.
It is so true.
What would you say your advice be if somebody was getting monkey mind when they're doing the yoga practice into their shavasana? Like, I know usually by shavasana you've settled your mind down enough, but what advice would you give to someone to sort of alleviate that monkey mind while they're trying to do their practice?
Yeah, isn't that the golden question? I think really to be kind in your self-talk and not judge yourself, because we're going to have days where it's super challenging, and there's days that it just seems to flow, and to not be harsh on yourself for those times that you think it should be a certain way, and just go with it. If it's going into monkey mind, it's like I try and tell my students that when you notice your mind is, rifling through those to-do lists, maybe you're doing your grocery list, or, all these things that you need to be doing as soon as you get off your mat. Sometimes just allowing the thoughts for a moment, or even just acknowledging, oh, my brain is thinking, come back to breath. They'll wait for me. I can pick up those worries when I'm done, but come back to breath. And I also tell the people that, are very judgmental of themselves, why can't I do this? Why can't I meditate? That is the practice of meditation. I think it's so frustrating. There's going to be days when it feels like, oh, this is so easy. And there's going to be days where I give up. This is really tricky. So maybe your whole shavasana or your whole meditation is, oh, thinking, come back to breath. Oh, there I'm going back to thinking, come back to breath. And maybe that's the whole time. I think there's a lot of learning in that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I would agree with that, because it is a constant struggle, right? Because our brains are always thinking. And this last week, it's been a hectic week for me. And that's exactly what I found was like, I actually really needed to say to myself, okay, you need to take this time and just breathe. Like you just like stop the thoughts and just breathe, because you're letting them go out of control. Right. And it's like it's like that hamster wheel. It just keeps going and going and going. And the more you feed it and let it go.
Oh, the more it grows and grows and grows, you bet it does. And it has been a real hectic week. So it's just one of those things that the stars must be doing something up there.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of people think that their yoga teacher or meditation teacher is on this pedestal, that they don't have those challenges. Absolutely. It just depends on the day. And, that's part of the practice as well. So I can sympathize when it's those days where it's just a big challenge, because I get there too sometimes, but that makes you appreciate those days where it just comes a little easier and you can sink a bit too. So I think it's just take it as it comes.
Absolutely.
I like that you said that, because we are all just people too. And we're trying to be the best that we can be as well by what we do, right? And so we are people too, and we have our days just like anybody else, but we try to be beyond that on the most part, right? To help others. That's why you're there, I'm certain, is to help people find their way of where they need to go, especially because of what you went through yourself. So,
I didn't speak on that. So it really was, my mat was my therapy. That mat caught so many emotions, lots of tears in Shavasana, that were really, if people find in some poses that their eyes get really leaky, or in Shavasana, sometimes there's an actual physical release. You do hold a lot of emotion in our hips. And when we do those types of poses, the emotion has to go somewhere. We're releasing energy. And sometimes, like I have experienced where my eyes are leaking, but I'm not in a full emotional cry. They're just like physically leaking. And it really is an emotional release. How therapeutic is that? And I've been in Shavasana and same thing. And I'm like, oh, it was maybe the song, but no, it's just your body has actually slowed for 5 minutes in your day. And how badly do we need that? Or what we've worked through in our practice. So that for me was powerful. And if that reaches someone, I love to share that too. I always tell people you can go to 100 yoga classes and not one's going to be the same. There's so many different styles, different ways of teaching those styles. So if someone says, oh, I tried yoga, it wasn't my jam, I was like, oh, okay, well, tell me what you did. And they might have just gone to 1 or 2 classes. I was like, oh, please do a few more, like do 10 different times. See, because maybe there's one, right? I said, do you know there's one you can bring your pillow and blanket to? No, well, you might like that one. So, and different seasons of our life. Maybe it's not in your life during this season, but future wise, that's serving you. So my own practice has its ebbs and flows too. Sometimes I'm practicing myself quite regularly and sometimes not. And I think giving grace just to take it as it comes. It shouldn't be a stress of, I didn't get my practice in. It's as you're craving it and honoring that too.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message, I think, that you just gave, because I think we really do. And I agree. I've been to many different teachers and many different classes. And I can say, none were the same. And even some of the teachers changed along the journey of being with them, from where we started out until where we ended up, which is such a beautiful thing. And I know the one that I went to, we did some kind of meditation, walking meditation or something. And then they sang she played that indie airy song, I Am Light. And if you're sitting in quiet meditation, especially if you have any kind of stuff, right, it's gonna make me cry now. It's it's so emotional, because it really is just about you being the light in the world, right? So it's such a strong message. So I agree. You don't know what's gonna set you off.
It depends what mood I'm in, and if I know who's in my class, but I'm like, ooh, this would be a good song to get them today. No, I just have fun with it. It's the ones that really speak to me that I'll share too.
Yeah, well, and it's great that that's how you started your journey to heal yourself and to, get over some of your physical pain and emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And then this has led you, obviously, this is the service that you were meant to put out into the world. So that's a beautiful thing.
Thanks. I think it was my medicine. And so I love to share what worked for me, and that's going to reach the people it's meant to reach. I'm not for everybody, but the people that you connect with it's pretty powerful. I've really connected with some amazing people along this journey, and some of them come in just for a season, and then they are off on their journey. But I've had some beautiful messages from people over the years that for whatever reason, some people thought, well, I could never do that. And they came to a class that was very much out of their comfort zone. And I've been all different body shapes and sizes myself. So I think knowing that you don't have to be a stereotypical shape or size to do yoga. You can just breathe and you're doing yoga. You can do yoga in a wheelchair. It's all encompassing. It's just having the mindset, which is a big part of the practice. So I love to humble myself when I'm teaching, because my body is naturally, I would say it's hyper flexible in some ways. And that doesn't make me a good yogi. There's no such thing as a good yogi, I should say, but it just means that I have I have imbalances basically. So yes, I can do some crazy acrobatic things in some ways, but other poses, no go. So I really think it's cool to honor, like, oh, my body likes this. It doesn't love this, and I'm working on this. But also I can injure myself if I go too deep in some things, if the ego takes over saying, oh, I can do this. And again, another part of the practice. So it is fascinating.
That's very true. We do have to honor ourselves all the time, as much as we can think about it. We can get lost so much in a day, just normal routine and that kind of thing. So yeah, yoga is beautiful. It does calm the mind. I know that when they were young and I did it, I was going through some situations back then, and I got into it just to help me think about something else instead of what I was going through. And it worked really good for me for then. And I still would like to do it again, and I will. I just, I talked to Kimmy about it a lot. And of course, talking to people like you too is good, because you're informing people out there, yeah, go for it. Doesn't matter if you have problems, moving and things like that. Doesn't mean that you won't down the road, that won't get better, right? And give it a try. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the way you've put it is just trust that we'll walk with you gently through it and instruct you to find the things that make you feel best about you, and give you hopefully that mindset and the bliss that you're looking for in your life. Doesn't matter about weight or anything else, but it matters about you being confident about yourself most of the time. If not, like we'd like to say all the time, but that's reaching.
I think it comes into that self-love. It's this is me, and I'm worthy just as I am. And part of the teachings going through Nidra is that we were born whole. We've always been whole. We just get those conditioning thoughts that tell us otherwise, that we're not good enough, we're not worthy of something, whatever the tapes that play in our brain we're conditioned over these years. Mm-hmm. And now we get to do those peeling back of the layers and come back to the truth of, no, you know what? We are magical beings as we are, and we don't have to be anything else than where we are right now. And I say that like I have that mastered. It's work. It's but it's a good reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody if they were just getting started, and let's say they did have some kind of physical, like, is that come to you and say, here's my issue. How can you adapt this to me? Or what would you just say if somebody just wanted to start it? What's the best way? What tools do they need?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's always good to go a little early and talk with the instructor and just share your maybe a little bit of history and any concerns, that things that might be on your mind that are worrisome. I think in any given class, if you were to say, okay, raise your hand if you have a physical ailment at this time, most of everybody's going to have something, and again, that comes back to the practice of honoring where you're at. So if you've got, let's say, a shoulder issue going on, then when we're doing things that put strain on that, we're going to back off of that particular thing and not get into our head of thinking, but I could do that yesterday, or I should be able to. The shoulds are pretty loud. And why? Like, why would we push ourselves into pain or possible further injury? So and if you're kind to yourself, you're going to allow that space for healing. And, if you were there, you'll eventually make your way back to that as your body's ready. And if it's something that's quite a big obstacle, then there's lots of ways we can do it. I try and give lots of variations in class. One thing I'm learning going through this is you may go to a class and they'll say, if you can't do it this, or if you need a modification, or if you need a prop that's such as a block, a lot of times we'll hear that as, oh, I can't do it as good as they are. I'm going to need to do this. And that is so difficult, especially when we're doing our best to show up on this mat that was intimidating in the first place. Not every body is made to do a certain thing. Like maybe our hips are formed in a certain way that you're not meant to do side splits. And why would you? If they do and it feels good, okay. But I would say that's probably more rare. You're no less than because you can't. So I try and offer using all the supports we can get, so you can find that ease in whatever pose we're doing without, adding to the stress in your mind going, why can't I? And I think it's really cool that no matter what's going on, if we have a physical ailment, if we have something that's a bit of a challenge, can always work with it. When we're doing an upright pose, most of those can be achieved, like the areas we're working on, by perhaps laying on your back and doing a similar pose, or standing up against a wall. Like there's usually a way to get into that area of the body, and it is just a different way. So
well said, because that's been my biggest hurdle this last year of my practice, has been to realize that, it's okay if I need the blocks to do certain poses. And I have kind of struggled with that a little bit, just emotionally, to be, but before, when I used to do this, I didn't need those. So exactly what you said, to just say, okay, but I do now. So how about we make this so that I'm enjoying it instead of struggling through it, right? So thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Well
what
said.
you mean.
Yeah, and I do try often to use the blocks first. So everybody in the room is using the blocks, because if you've never used a block, it changes how you're experiencing that particular pose. And it also is a practice for many people, like, but I don't need a block. Well, no, you may not need a block, but let's experience it with a block and see how that might be different.
Yeah.
For some poses, it allows you to relax in and you get a deeper sensation, or you get a different sensation. And once we're in it, they may like what they're in, or take the block away and see how that changes it now. I really like that approach more often.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Start them with it, and that way you don't have any, I don't really want to go get that block because I know it looks silly, that kind of thing. And so, I mean, yeah, that's a really good idea to start it up with that, and that people can judge from there if they need it or not. Because I know with me, with maturity in life and that kind of thing, there's things that I used to be able to do, like when I was younger, and I can't do them now. But I mean, to go into a class though, and you're giving me that option, I would really be thankful for that, because that would help me tremendously, right? Tremendously a lot. So that's a good idea. I like
Well, and it's a good way to kind of get curious on, I've never done it this way. This is a different sensation. And maybe your body is feeling a bit more safe, and it will release more in that particular pose because it's supported.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's restorative yoga is a lot like that too, because it is where you're using blocks for everything, blocks, blankets, maybe straps, all the things. And the goal in that particular practice is not the sensation, it's showing the body that it's safe to release. And it's really more of a nervous system practice. And when our nervous system feels safe, your muscles, that gripping sensation that we often have, we don't even realize, there's that letdown, and there's some magic in that too. So they can be really powerful.
Yeah, it is a good one. I like restorative.
Yeah.
I like it all, but
Yeah.
so your studio or your business is Omi's Yoga?
Yeah, Omi's Yoga. And so we do weekly classes in person. I do some online meditations. I've also got some online video libraries for those that want to continue their practice when we're not. I usually take a break over the summertime. And any special event we can get involved with. I had a big birthday celebration and we decided to make that a glow in the dark yoga. So
cool.
That's
whatever we feel like sometimes.
nice. Where did you come up with that name, if you don't mind me asking?
There is a meme, so it's kind of a play on the word homie, like we're homies, but it's Om as in chanting Om. So now we're Omies as in friends. And so I just thought that was funny. I'm always a sucker for, the funny sayings on our yoga tank top shirts and any little yoga memes. If you follow my stories on my socials, they're always something silly. So I love to share that too.
Which is great, because then you can laugh and just enjoy life. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a really neat name. I just thought, oh, that's so cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. We have a shirt that I have on my merch that's hanging with my Omis. So kind of just sums up the way that, if I can get a feel for people coming to class, it's just that, come and enjoy your space without judgment, without feeling that there's eyes on you, because everyone has the same feelings. They're all in their own practice, really. So, everybody has, these self-doubts at some point in their head, and you know what, let's just practice, let's have some fun, see where you're at. And I joke that if people just want to have mutiny and just lay in Shavasana whole class, that's up to them. I can't really control that. So
that's awesome.
That is good.
I like that. So do you do drop-in class? Like, can you drop into your classes as well? Yeah.
I usually do. I'll book them as a series, and there's usually a little bit of space for drop-in. So if someone wants to come, they can just message me, or if it's usually on my website. I just usually one night a week I'll have a few classes in, and then the rest are kept open. But I have special events. We do retreats sometimes, and it kind of goes with how I feel. So if we add a few extras, we do. I'll do workshops as well. We've got one coming up with using the fascial ball. So if you've done foam rolling to release into muscles, using a lacrosse ball into muscles is, for me, very targeted release. And that's a good one to really get into the fascial layers and offer some release. It's good for people that are feeling that tightness that they can't quite move past, or maybe someone who's in some athletic training that needs some complementary release. So that's something I'm sharing at the Banff Wellness. Good. And all in between. We love it all.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's you got such wonderful energy. We love it. Can you tell our followers where they can find you?
Thanks. Yeah, you can find me probably easiest on my website. So it's omisyoga.ca. And if you like to share in some good memes and silly things as well, my socials, you can find me at omisyoga108. Mostly on Instagram and on the stories, but it's all there. YouTube channel, I guess I'm on all the platforms. I'm also on Insight Timer as well.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Well, I'll put all of that in the show notes, and then people will be able to find you. So it's been such a wonderful hour or so, or whatever it was, talking to you. Your energy is just great.
You have beautiful energy.
We just love it.
You.
Yeah. I'm glad that I'm not glad that, you had rough spots, but I'm glad it led you to do this and share this with everybody, because if I'm ever in Okotoks, I'm going to drop into a class.
And Okotoks, be my guest. Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okotoks is beautiful too. I like it there.
I might catch you on Zoom because most of my classes are also on Zoom for the people that want that option. So either or.
Okay. Perfect. Good to know. Love it. Okay, well, thank you so much for being a guest with us. We really appreciate you sharing some space with us. And then for
Sure
our
do.
followers, please like and subscribe and listen to us. Leave us some positive reviews.
You
That's
bet,
great
love
in the
us.
podcast world. And yeah, and
You've inspired me. So I'm going to go back to some yoga. Even though she's always talking about it, but you talked about a couple of things through this with when I'm working out sort of thing. I have some little bit of a back problem in that. So I think the yoga with that ball might be the other thing that I need to get into to help me a little bit more so I can keep a little bit more, I don't know, my moment. I want my movement to keep as much as I can fluid. There's the word. I couldn't find it.
I think it's really the key to aging well. I think I'm going to be that 100-year-old yoga teacher.
perfect.
That's my goal.
That's a great goal.
Good for you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And everybody have a magical week.
You betcha. Bye.